Science has taken us to the moon, decoded the human genome, and reconstructed millions of years of history. Yet some questions remain unanswered. Hidden deep underground, drifting across the oceans, or buried in ancient texts, lie mysteries that continue to baffle experts. How did ancient people carve stone with such precision? Why do some objects exist long before the first known civilizations? And what lies behind phenomena that no modern instrument can fully measure? In this video, we'll uncover 7 real mysteries that science still can't explain. These aren't myths. They're not science fiction. These are well-documented, photographed, and studied phenomena. Yet no one has been able to solve them. Among all the ancient manuscripts that still exist today, there is one that sends shivers down the spines of both scholars and mystery enthusiasts alike: Codex Gigas, better known as the Devil's Bible. It's unlike any book ever made, nearly a meter tall, over 70 kilograms in weight, crafted from the skins of hundreds of calves. And most shocking of all, it contains a full-page illustration of Satan, something considered taboo in any official version of the Bible. But that's just the surface. Legend says this book was completed in a single night, thanks to a pact with the devil. And when a massive fire consumed the royal library, the codex, against all odds, survived nearly untouched. That's when whispers began to spread. Could this be a cursed book, a relic born of a demonic deal? Among the surviving manuscripts from the Middle Ages, Codex Gigas stands out not just for its content, but for its sheer size and extraordinary construction, so much so that many believe it couldn't have been created by ordinary human means. The book measures nearly 92 centimeters tall, 50 centimeters wide, and about 23 centimeters thick, with an estimated weight of over 75 kilos, roughly the size of a full-grown adult. Scholars estimate that producing the entire manuscript required the hides of 160 calves, an enormous number that suggests this was far beyond any typical monastic undertaking of its time. What makes Codex Gigas even more surreal is the entire manuscript appears to have been written by a single person. Not only did this individual handwrite the roughly 310 remaining pages, but the handwriting remains perfectly uniform from beginning to end, showing no signs of fatigue, change in writing speed, or any noticeable deviation in ink or style. In an era when writing even a small book by hand took years, completing a manuscript of this magnitude with such precision seems to defy human limits. Some scholars have proposed that if the author worked on it continuously for a lifetime, it might have taken 20 to 30 years to complete. However, the eerie consistency of the handwriting leads many to suspect that Codex Gigas is not merely the result of extraordinary effort. It may be the product of a supernatural force, echoing the legend that the book was written through a pact with the devil. This remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries surrounding the manuscript, and only deepens its reputation as one of the most haunting artifacts in human history. One of the darkest legends surrounding the Codex Gigas is the tale of a pact with the devil. According to Central European folklore, the book's author was a Benedictine monk who committed a grave offense and was sentenced to death by being walled up alive, a horrifying punishment in the Middle Ages. Desperate to redeem himself, the monk begged for mercy, proposing to create a monumental book that would glorify God and preserve all human knowledge, but to do so in a single night. Realizing the task was impossible, he is said to have turned to Satan, offering his soul in exchange for the supernatural ability to complete the manuscript. The legend becomes even more chilling with the belief that the full-page illustration of the devil within the book is proof of this unholy pact. From that moment, Codex Gigas ceased to be just a manuscript. It became a cursed object, a demonic contract written in ink and sealed with a soul. Among the more than 300 pages of the Codex Gigas, none is more haunting or controversial than the illustration of Satan, a massive full-page image drawn entirely by hand with astonishing detail. In the depiction, the devil appears monstrous, an enormous figure with pale grayish or reddish skin, sharp curved horns, wide glaring eyes, a long red tongue sticking out, and claws like those of a predator. He crouches between two towers or pillars, evoking the sense of being imprisoned in a dark dungeon, yet his eyes seem to pierce straight through the viewer. Strikingly, this illustration is placed at the very center of the manuscript, something unheard of in any other Bible, which traditionally avoids any direct visual reference to the devil. Even more ironic, the page opposite it portrays heaven, soft light, serene towers, and a peaceful landscape, creating a stark contrast between good and evil. This deliberate juxtaposition has led many to believe that the book is meant to serve as a visual warning, a chilling reminder of the coexistence of divine light and darkness, and the thin line that separates salvation from damnation. Not only remarkable for its size and eerie illustrations, the Codex Gigas is also an immense repository of medieval knowledge and belief far beyond the scope of an ordinary Bible. Its contents include the entire Old and New Testaments in Latin, painstakingly transcribed with precision and care. But alongside these religious texts are rare secular writings, such as treatises on ancient medicine, astrology, and classical philosophy, as well as the Rule of Saint Benedict, which outlined the moral codes and daily routines of monastic life. Remarkably, the Codex also features exorcism, rituals, spells, and magical formulas reflecting the complex and often contradictory relationship between faith and superstition during the Middle Ages. The coexistence of sacred scripture with arcane and mystical content makes the Codex Gigas truly unique. It is not merely a holy book, but a medieval encyclopedia, a convergence of belief, knowledge, and fear of the unseen. One of the most haunting aspects of the Codex Gigas doesn't just stem from its content or the infamous devil legend, but from the almost unbelievable way it survived a devastating fire, an event that has led many to believe the book carries a curse of immortality. In 1697, a massive fire broke out at Tre Krona Palace in Stockholm, which at the time housed the Swedish Royal Library. The flames spread so rapidly that there was barely time to evacuate, and thousands of invaluable manuscripts, many of them unique, were reduced to ashes on the spot. Amid the chaos and desperation, a few soldiers and librarians tried to rescue the most valuable works. Among them was the Codex Gigas, the largest, heaviest, and most unwieldy book in the entire collection. Unable to carry it down the stairs, one soldier reportedly threw it from a high window, hoping it might land safely. And against all odds, that's exactly what happened. Codex Gigas fell several stories, but suffered almost no damage, save for a minor tear along the spine. Meanwhile, lighter and better protected manuscripts were completely destroyed by the flames. The Codex alone remained intact. News of the incident spread throughout Europe. For those who already believed the Codex was born of a demonic pact, its escape from the fire seemed like undeniable proof that earthly fire could not destroy the devil's book. A phrase circulated at the time, even recorded in some chronicles, "The word of God burns, but the word of the devil endures." It was a bitter and chilling commentary on the mysterious resilience of the manuscript. Even skeptics struggled to explain it. How could a book weighing nearly 75 kilograms survive a fall from such height without shattering? And why was it the only manuscript to escape unscathed among thousands? Some suggest the thick leather binding and sturdy construction may have helped, but that doesn't explain why none of the inner pages were even scorched, despite the room being engulfed in flames. Since then, the image of Codex Gigas has become more than a demonic curiosity. It's seen as a living symbol of curses and occult power. In the eyes of medieval people, this was no longer just a manuscript. It was a relic of something beyond human understanding. And each time someone looks at the infamous illustration of the devil within its pages, they're left to wonder, was it that very creature who protected the book from the fire? Although the Codex Gigas currently contains about 310 pages, many scholars believe it originally had more than 340. What's suspicious is that the missing pages were not lost to time or damage, but appear to have been deliberately torn out. No one knows what content was removed, but theories range from dark, magical rituals to the true identity of the author, or even heretical information the Church wanted suppressed. This act of removal only deepens the mystery surrounding the book, as if something was intentionally hidden from humanity. Today, the Codex Gigas is housed in the Swedish National Library, where it is regarded as a cultural treasure. Yet many who stand before it describe a feeling of dizziness, chills, or even the unsettling sensation of being watched by the devil's eyes from the page. The Codex Gigas is a haunting testament to the intersection of knowledge, faith, and fear. Through the centuries, it has endured as an unfinished chapter of history, leaving us to wonder, are there secrets that were deliberately hidden from humanity, sealed with the very soul of the one who wrote it? You may have never heard of them, but tens of thousands of years ago, they were the first people to set foot on the American continent, the Clovis people. They didn't build fortresses or carve letters into stone, but they left behind razor-sharp, finely crafted stone weapons that spread across North America like an underground wave of adaptation and progress. In a world still frozen from the Ice Age, they survived hunted mammoths and built a primitive culture seen as the opening chapter of humanity's story in the New World. But then, they vanished, without a trace, without a farewell. In just a few short centuries, an entire civilization that once spread like wildfire disappeared from history. No signs of war, no evidence of disease, and no clear successor. The question remains, even after thousands of years, what really happened to the Clovis people? The Clovis culture emerged as an archaeological phenomenon, with evidence stretching from Canada to southern Mexico. At a time when humans mostly lived in scattered and isolated groups, Clovis left behind a strangely unified signature, most clearly seen in their finely crafted, distinctive spear points. These tools were not only highly effective for hunting, but also reflected an astonishing level of technological skill for their era. The rapid spread of Clovis technology over such a vast area has led researchers to believe that early human groups were sharing knowledge and interacting in ways previously thought impossible. This was more than just a tool style, it was the symbol of a continent-wide primitive culture unmatched by any other prehistoric phase. The disappearance of the Clovis people is not merely an archaeological mystery, it stands as a major paradox in human history. For decades, researchers have agreed that the Clovis were among the earliest cultures to flourish across the North American continent, with evidence of their presence stretching from Canada all the way to southern parts of the United States and Mexico. Their signature tools, stone spear points with fluted bases, were not only masterpieces of Stone Age technology, but also represented a rare example of widespread technological uniformity in prehistoric times. And yet, shockingly, the Clovis culture only lasted for about 300 to 500 years, a blink of an eye compared to the lifespan of other ancient civilizations. After that brief window, Clovis tools disappeared entirely from the archaeological record. There are no signs of gradual replacement or technological evolution. No evidence of a smooth cultural transition. In other words, the Clovis seem to have been erased from history almost instantly, leaving behind no clear cultural descendants. What makes this even more puzzling is that their disappearance wasn't accompanied by the usual indicators of societal collapse. No signs of warfare, no widespread disease, no archaeological evidence of being overtaken by another group. Some scientists have suggested that the Clovis people might have migrated or integrated into other communities, but tool analysis and design styles from later Paleo-Indian cultures, such as the Folsom tradition, differ so greatly that they appear disconnected from Clovis entirely. Because of this, archaeologists describe their vanishing as a cultural break, a void in history, as if someone had opened a book, written the first chapter, then closed it forever. Without written records, the Clovis left behind no voice to explain what happened to them. All that remains are the buried spear points, the silent relics of a culture that once thrived, then suddenly disappeared, as if it had never been there. Why would a unified, far-reaching culture like Clovis vanish so quickly? To this day, that question remains unanswered, and perhaps it is that very silence that has made them one of the greatest enigmas of prehistoric America. Around 12,800 years ago, Earth may have experienced a global-scale natural catastrophe. A comet or meteor is believed to have exploded in the atmosphere, triggering massive wildfires and releasing vast amounts of dust and gases into the sky. The result was an abrupt climate reversal known as the Younger Dryas, during which global temperatures dropped sharply within just a few decades, ending the post-Ice Age warming period. This sudden cold phase, lasting nearly 1,000 years, devastated the ecosystems that the Clovis people relied on. Vegetation was destroyed, and large animals like mammoths and giant ground sloths began disappearing in waves, collapsing the entire food chain. As a culture that heavily depended on hunting megafauna, the Clovis had few viable means to adapt to the harsh, new conditions. With no time to transition to a different way of life, they were forced to face collapse, not just in their way of survival, but in the very fabric of their culture. The period during which the Clovis people thrived coincided with the final age of the Ice Age megafauna giant animals that once roamed North America. For thousands of years, the Clovis developed specialized skills and tools to hunt these massive creatures, including mammoths, giant deer, ground sloths, and even saber-toothed cats. These animals were not only their primary food source, but also central to their livelihood and cultural identity. However, around 12,000 years ago, megafaunal species began to vanish in rapid succession. The cause remains debated, possibly due to sudden climate change, overhunting, or a combination of both, but the consequences for the Clovis were undeniable. As their primary food sources collapsed, their entire way of life came under threat. Without large prey, their hunting tools lost their purpose, and their inherited survival skills had no place in the changing world. They didn't just lose their meals, they lost the very foundation of their existence as a distinct culture. One of the factors that makes the disappearance of the Clovis people so mysterious is that they left behind no clear successors. The Paleo-Indian cultures that followed, such as the Folsom, used entirely different tools, showing no signs of evolution or adaptation from Clovis technology. There was no continuity in techniques, beliefs, or traditions, indicating a complete cultural break, as if the Clovis culture had been abruptly cut off and erased from the flow of history. Although once regarded as the first Americans, modern genetic research suggests that the Clovis people were only one of several migration waves into the Americas. DNA data from present-day indigenous populations reveals a much more complex genetic diversity with ancestral roots tracing back to both East Asia and Siberia. This has shifted Clovis from the central role in American prehistory to an incomplete opening chapter in humanity's broader journey of settling the New World. The Clovis people once stood as a symbol of exceptional survival and adaptation in the harsh world following the Ice Age. They crafted sophisticated tools, hunted efficiently, and opened a significant chapter in the history of the Americas. Yet their culture vanished suddenly and silently, without clear successors, without explanation. All we are left with are a few hundred spear points buried in cold soil, silent clues to a civilization erased by time. And perhaps somewhere deep beneath the North American earth, untold secrets still lie waiting to be revealed. The sudden disappearance of the Clovis people raises a flood of questions. Were they completely wiped out? Or could parts of their culture have survived within later communities that we've yet to recognize? What do you think about this mystery? Was it a natural disaster, climate change, or perhaps an unknown factor that erased them? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. In this world, there are ancient books preserved in the shadows of forgotten libraries, each page holding a fragment of lost history. There are manuscripts that have driven even the most brilliant scholars to frustration. But then, there exists a book that transcends all boundaries of understanding. A book not only unread, but one that may never be read at all. That book is the Rohonk Codex. No one knows who wrote it. No one knows in what language it was written. And most importantly, no one, not even linguists, cryptographers, or AI experts, has been able to decipher a single sentence. This hundreds of pages long codex doesn't belong to any known timeline of history. It feels as if it came from a parallel world where writing, meaning, and belief operate under a completely different logic. Over 800 unique symbols, unlike any known alphabet, stretch across its pages, whispering a forgotten story that humanity has never heard and may never understand. For nearly 2 centuries, the Rohonk Codex has challenged human curiosity, intellect, and the pride of academia itself. It is not merely an old manuscript, it is a challenge from the past sent into the future, and to this day, we still have no answer. The Rohonk Codex was discovered in the 19th century in the Hungarian town of Rohonch, now Rechnitz, Austria. It was donated to the Hungarian Academy of Sciences in 1838 by Count Gustav Batthyány. But its origin? No one knows. There are no prior references to it, no copies exist, no record of its preservation. Author unknown. Date of writing unclear. The book seems to have appeared out of nowhere, leaving behind no trace in history. Among all the strange aspects surrounding the Rohonk Codex, nothing is more mysterious than its writing system. This 448-page manuscript is written in a completely unidentified script containing over 800 distinct symbols, a number far exceeding any known human alphabet. For comparison, the Latin alphabet has just 26 letters, Greek has 24, and even complex syllabic systems, like Japanese, only use a few hundred symbols at most. Yet the Rohonk Codex employs hundreds of unique characters, many of which appear only once, rendering statistical analysis almost meaningless. This extreme richness raises a core question. Is this a real language or merely a sequence of random, meaningless symbols? If it is a language, then it is entirely disconnected from all known linguistic families, bearing no ties to Indo-European Semitic or any indigenous Asian languages. If it is a cipher, then its complexity exceeds the limits of modern cryptographic tools. It shows no consistent frequency patterns, no recognizable grammatical structure, and not even a clearly determined writing direction. Some scholars argue it reads left to right, others claim the opposite, and some believe it's written in vertical columns. Because of this, researchers are increasingly leaning toward a difficult conclusion. The Rohonk Codex is not simply an undeciphered text, it may represent an entirely alien linguistic system, as if it originated from a long-lost civilization or a mind not of this world. For nearly 200 years, many scholars have tried to decipher the Rohonk Codex, and every single attempt has failed. Hungarian researcher János Hargitai once claimed the text was written in an archaic form of Hungarian using an unusual orthography. He even published a translation describing religious content and historical events, but his approach was criticized for lacking linguistic rigor and relying heavily on subjective interpretation. Other hypotheses have tried to link the script to Old Turkic Sanskrit Romanian and even Latin, but all have proven incompatible. Some have speculated that it's a substitution cipher using arbitrary symbols, but no one creates a cipher with 800 characters unless they are intentionally trying to mislead. This has led to a more chilling theory. Could it all be an elaborate hoax? A manuscript not meant to communicate, but to deceive? If so, it would be an incredibly meticulous hoax. Hundreds of pages of carefully handwritten text with consistent structure and repeating patterns. It is fiction engineered with almost pathological precision. One of the most perplexing aspects of the Rohonk Codex, apart from its undecipherable script, is its system of accompanying illustrations. There are around 90 small hand-drawn images scattered throughout the manuscript's pages. At first glance, they seem like ordinary illustrations, depictions of battles, religious rituals, crucifixions, processions, and scenes of daily life. However, the closer one examines them, the more apparent the ambiguity of cultural and religious symbolism becomes. Within the same manuscript, we see the Christian cross, the Islamic crescent, and the Jewish menorah coexisting without conflict. No known civilization in recorded history has ever simultaneously presented these three major religious symbols in a single document, especially in such a natural and unopposed manner. This has led researchers to form various hypotheses. Was the author of the Rohonk Codex deliberately blending religions to convey a transcendent idea? Or was it the imagination of someone detached from any specific cultural tradition, someone living in a world of their own making? Even the artistic styles of the illustrations resist categorization. Some have a Byzantine quality, while others resemble medieval European woodcuts. Altogether, the Rohonk Codex becomes a kind of time-transcending gateway, impossible to date, impossible to assign to any single culture, almost as if it doesn't belong anywhere on the historical map at all. Not only scholars, but even modern technology has been defeated by it. Digital scans, frequency analysis, pattern recognition software, everything has been tried. Yet the text remains undecipherable. The character frequencies don't match any known language. The structure doesn't follow any syntactic rules. Even repeated patterns can't be mapped to grammatical functions. The Rohonk Codex behaves like a language, but is not one in any form we recognize. What makes the Rohonk Codex truly haunting is its absolute silence. Unlike the Voynich manuscript, where researchers can at least trace a few clues through botanical illustrations or charts, the Rohonk Codex stands completely alone. No origin, no copies, no context, no escape. It might be a long-lost religious scripture, a historical record encoded in secrecy, or simply a mind game with no solution. The most terrifying thought isn't that we haven't deciphered it yet, but that we may never be able to. And perhaps it was made to be that way, a mystery never meant for humankind to solve. So, what do you think the Rohonk Codex really is? A lost, ancient language? A forgotten religious cipher? Or perhaps just a timeless prank crafted by someone who wanted to challenge the entire foundation of human knowledge? Do you believe there will come a day when we finally decode this manuscript? Or will it forever remain shrouded in the shadows, one of history's unsolvable mysteries? Share your thoughts in the comments. Who knows, you might be the one to unlock its secrets. In the summer of 2018, beneath the bustling streets of Alexandria, Egypt, a city layered with thousands of years of history, construction workers made a startling discovery: a strange pitch-black granite block buried nearly 5 meters underground. When archaeologists arrived at the scene, they were stunned by what they saw. This was no ordinary coffin. It was enormous, weighing 27 tons, crafted from polished black granite, tightly sealed and completely devoid of any markings. No names, no symbols, no clues to identify the dead. For more than 2,000 years, it had remained silent, untouched, unopened. And then we lifted the lid. What lay inside horrified some disappointed others and sent the world spiraling into a storm of theories, rumors, memes, and nameless fears. But the truth revealed through the bones and DNA analysis turned out to be stranger and more chilling than any speculation. This is the story of the Black Sarcophagus of Alexandria, not just a mystery carved in stone, but a cold reminder that there are still things about the dead and the history beneath our feet that we do not truly understand. In ancient Egyptian culture, a sarcophagus was not merely a final resting place, it was a passport for the soul to enter the afterlife. The lid of every coffin was traditionally inscribed with texts honoring the deceased, prayers to the gods, and sacred symbols meant to protect the soul from evil forces. Names, titles, and lineage were all proudly and elaborately displayed. But the black sarcophagus discovered in Alexandria defied all of these traditions. It was smooth and featureless. No inscriptions, no carvings, no indication whatsoever of who lay inside. This shocked archaeologists, not just because it was unusual, but because it stripped them of a crucial clue: identity. There were no texts to decipher, no symbols to follow. Why would someone go to such lengths to erase identity? Was the deceased a traitor, a criminal condemned to be forgotten? Or was this part of an unorthodox burial ritual, one in which death required no name? In a world where names were the keys to spiritual immortality, an anonymous tomb was the ultimate curse, a deliberate denial of the right to be remembered. And strangest of all, why place such an unknown figure in a massive, costly sarcophagus made of rare black granite? That question still hangs unanswered in the silence of history. The moment the massive lid of the black sarcophagus was lifted, centuries of speculation, hope, and fear erupted all at once. A wave of foul, choking stench surged out, forcing archaeologists to step back. The odor was unbearable. Inside, there was no golden glow, no pristine mummy, as many had hoped. Instead, a murky, reddish-brown liquid filled the coffin. At first, some believed it was ancient blood, or even some form of sacred elixir. But the truth was far more mundane. It was sewage water slowly seeping in over more than 2,000 years from the infrastructure above. 3 skeletons, decomposed and broken apart, lay submerged in the liquid. There were no burial goods, no wrappings, no signs of religious ritual. This shocking scene quickly made headlines around the world. On the internet, millions speculated at once. Was this a cursed tomb? Could it be the long-lost grave of Alexander the Great? Or was it a sarcophagus of dark power that should never have been opened? In that instant, the black coffin became more than just an artifact. It became a symbol of fear and human imagination unleashed. When the 3 skeletons from the black sarcophagus were brought in for laboratory analysis, archaeologists and scientists hoped for clear answers, at the very least clues to their identities, blood relationships, or social status. But the results only deepened the mystery. DNA testing revealed that the 3 men were not related, not brothers, not father and sons, not even close relatives. This immediately ruled out the theory of a family tomb, which was a common burial practice during the Greco-Egyptian Ptolemaic era. 3 unrelated individuals who died around the same time, buried together in a single sarcophagus. This sharply contradicted centuries of Egyptian funerary tradition. More curiously, one of the skulls bore a distinct trauma, a large fracture on the left temple, consistent with a heavy blow, likely fatal. There was no evidence of healing, suggesting the injury occurred immediately before or during death, pointing toward a violent death, possibly execution or assault. Another skeleton showed signs of spinal curvature, likely a congenital deformity. The third had no obvious pathology, but none of them were buried with any funerary objects or grave goods that might indicate status or historical role. Taken together, none of the 3 individuals showed signs of nobility, no golden funerary masks, no evidence of mummification, no valuables. That's deeply unusual, considering the lavish nature of their coffin, a massive 27-ton sarcophagus made of black granite, a rare stone, sourced only from Aswan, hundreds of kilometers away. Carving and transporting such a monolith required immense labor and resources, not something done casually. This led to a flood of theories. Some suggest this was a secret burial site for executed individuals, possibly criminals, political prisoners, or conspirators within the Ptolemaic court. A quiet disposal with no names, no records, and no memory. Others speculate about a bizarre religious ritual, perhaps heretical, in which the dead were deliberately erased from memory. In ancient Egypt, there was a concept known as damnatio memoriae, the total erasure of a person's name and memory, effectively condemning them to eternal death by denying them access to the afterlife. But the biggest contradiction lies in the sarcophagus itself. If these men were nameless outcasts, why entomb them in a grand monumental coffin, a form typically reserved for elite or royal figures? If they were punished, why grant them such an elaborate burial? There is no satisfying answer. DNA does not reveal status. A skull cannot confess sins. The silent black granite only makes every theory more fragile. And perhaps that's why this part of the mystery stands at the heart of it all, because instead of delivering clarity, it shatters expectations, making the black sarcophagus even more unsettling, awe-inspiring, and elusive to modern science. After ruling out common theories about a noble tomb or a typical mass grave, researchers began exploring bolder possibilities, some steeped in politics and dark ritual. A number of experts have suggested that the black sarcophagus might have been a repurposed tomb used during the chaotic Ptolemaic period when power was fragmented and burials sometimes followed opportunistic logic rather than tradition. Another theory proposes that it was a means of secretly disposing of political enemies, a form of anonymous burial designed to erase all trace of their existence. In particular, the idea of a ritual punishment resembling damnatio memoriae, the deliberate erasure of identity from history, gained traction, especially given the absence of name symbols or funerary goods with the 3 skeletons. But here lies the paradox. If these individuals were deemed unworthy of remembrance, why entomb them in a massive, expensive coffin, carved from rare black granite, a material usually reserved for the elite or royalty? This contradiction leaves every theory incomplete, and the sarcophagus continues to guard its secrets in silence. To this day, despite thorough scientific analysis from DNA testing to bone examination, we still don't know who the three men inside the black sarcophagus were, how they died, or who placed them there. No texts, artifacts, or burial rites accompanied the bodies, making it nearly impossible to trace their identities. Instead of providing clarity, the available evidence only deepens the mystery. Three nameless men, unrelated by blood, dead under unusual circumstances, laid to rest in a massive but anonymous coffin, as if history itself deliberately chose to conceal them. The black sarcophagus is not just an archaeological artifact, it stands as a symbol of history's deliberate silences. It reminds us that no matter how far science advances, some mysteries remain hidden by time itself, stories forever buried in the shadows of granite, alongside the nameless souls within. So who do you think the three men buried in the massive black sarcophagus really were? Were they victims of a secret execution, political enemies erased from history, or remnants of an ancient ritual we've yet to understand? Share your thoughts or theories in the comments. Your perspective might just add a missing piece to this unsolved mystery. It was drawn in 1513. It shouldn't exist, but it does. In an age when much of the world was still a mystery, a single piece of parchment dared to redraw the boundaries of history. Created by Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis, this map was unlike anything Europe had ever seen. It depicted coastlines, with near-modern accuracy charted lands, supposedly undiscovered, and even included a landmass eerily resembling Antarctica 300 years before anyone officially found it. But the true shock doesn't lie in what the map shows, it's in how Piri Reis claimed he made it. According to the cryptic notes scribbled on its edges, this wasn't just his work. It was a puzzle built from older maps, some dating back to ancient times, including possibly one drawn by Columbus, and others from civilizations that shouldn't have known these places even existed. What if this wasn't just a map? What if it was a key to lost knowledge, a forgotten version of Earth, drawn long before history says it could have been? This is the story of the Piri Reis map, a cartographic anomaly that may rewrite everything we thought we knew about exploration, civilization, and the hidden currents of ancient human history. The Piri Reis map, as we know it, is merely a fragment, a surviving piece of a larger world map that was once drawn on gazelle skin parchment. It covers the western coasts of Europe and Africa, the eastern coast of South America, and portions of the Atlantic Ocean. What makes it exceptional isn't just what it shows, but how accurately it shows it. For instance, the east coast of South America is drawn with a precision that wouldn't be matched for hundreds of years. The relationship between Africa and South America is proportionally correct. Even the map's curvature attempts to account for the spherical nature of the Earth, something medieval maps rarely addressed properly. But perhaps the most stunning element is a landmass located far south, interpreted by some as Antarctica, shown without its now permanent ice cap. This claim has fueled speculation for decades, suggesting that the continent might have been mapped before it froze, and by a civilization lost to history. One of the most astonishing aspects of the Piri Reis map doesn't lie in the geographic drawings on animal skin, but in the sources that Piri Reis claimed to have used to create it. In handwritten notes along the map's margins, he clearly stated that the map was not entirely his own original work. Instead, he had compiled and refined it from around 20 different maps, including maps from the time of Alexander the Great, ancient Arabic maps, Portuguese charts, and most intriguingly, a map said to be drawn by Christopher Columbus himself. This opens up a startling question. If Piri Reis was merely a compiler, then who truly created the original maps he relied on? How did ancient Greek cartographers or medieval Islamic scholars acquire such accurate knowledge of coastlines on the far side of the Atlantic regions that history says Europe had not yet discovered? If these source maps genuinely date back to the 4th century BCE, the era of Alexander the Great, then we are faced with a shocking possibility. An ancient civilization may have possessed a level of global geographic understanding far beyond what modern history acknowledges. Could it be that geographic knowledge once reached extraordinary heights only to be lost through time, leaving behind mere fragments for people like Piri Reis to unknowingly piece together and preserve? In this light, the Piri Reis map transcends cartography and becomes a mystery that challenges the very timeline of human history. Another eyebrow-raising detail comes from Piri Reis's claim that one of his sources was a map drawn by Christopher Columbus himself. While it's known that Columbus kept navigational records, no verified, original Columbus maps have survived to this day. If Piri Reis had access to such a document, it would be an unparalleled window into early European exploration of the New World. Even more strange, Columbus only explored a small portion of the Caribbean and Central America, yet the Piri Reis map shows detailed stretches of the South American coast much farther south than Columbus ever traveled. This suggests that other sources, perhaps even older ones, were more influential in the compilation of the map. One controversial yet increasingly compelling hypothesis among scholars and archaeologists is that the Piri Reis map is not merely a product of the 16th century, but may actually preserve the remnants of a far more ancient world map, a map that was copied and handed down through generations. With each replication, some details may have been lost, but key fragments of global geography were preserved. When these fragments are pieced together, they suggest the possible existence of an ancient civilization with an advanced understanding of Earth's structure, perhaps even predating the Greeks, Egyptians, or Sumerians. This idea may sound far-fetched, but it's not without basis. Human history is filled with legends of lost knowledge, from the Library of Alexandria, said to have held all the wisdom of the ancient world, to the myth of Atlantis, a civilization swallowed by the sea, along with its immense understanding. Though often dismissed as myths, such stories reflect a deep human longing to believe that we once reached heights of knowledge that today we can only dream of. Could it be that Piri Reis perhaps unknowingly inherited a chain of cartographic knowledge stretching back to prehistoric times, a stream of forgotten wisdom, flowing silently through the centuries, interrupted by war, disaster, or civilizational collapse, finally converging on a single piece of parchment skin, a lone surviving clue from an age the official history has never recorded? Skeptics, of course, have attempted to explain away the map's anomalies. Some argue that the supposed depiction of Antarctica is actually just a misdrawn South America. Others believe the map's accuracy is overstated or coincidental. There are also those who assert that seafaring knowledge traveled more widely than we thought, especially among Islamic and Portuguese explorers of the 14th and 15th centuries. Yet none of these theories fully address the central enigma. How could a 16th century Ottoman admiral, using older sources, draw a map that aligns so closely with modern satellite geography? Even with the best explanations, questions remain. Whether one believes that the Piri Reis map is evidence of a forgotten chapter of human history, or simply a remarkable product of knowledge sharing in the early modern world, it remains an anomaly, a document that does not fit neatly into our conventional historical narratives. It is a reminder that history is not always linear, that knowledge can be lost, recovered, misunderstood, or even deliberately hidden, and that sometimes in dusty libraries or tucked away in forgotten archives we find evidence of stories we thought were impossible. The Piri Reis map is not just an artifact, it's an invitation to question what we think we know about the ancient world, and to remain open to the possibility that our ancestors may have sailed farther, seen more, and understood the Earth more deeply than we've ever imagined. If all of this is true, then could it be that the history we've been taught is only a small fragment of a much larger picture, a picture mostly erased by time? What do you think about the Piri Reis map? Is it evidence of a forgotten advanced civilization, or just a remarkable coincidence of ancient knowledge stitched together? Share your thoughts in the comments below. How many more secrets might still lie buried beneath the dust of history, waiting to be uncovered? Imagine standing on a barren hilltop, surrounded by nothing but rocks, and the wind sweeping across the silent plains of Turkey. No signs of ancient cities, no towering walls, no domes or ruins, and yet hidden beneath this dry, lifeless soil lies a human-made structure older than any pyramid, more intricate than anything prehistoric humans were ever thought capable of. Göbekli Tepe, a name once unknown to the world, has shaken the foundations of archaeology. Its discovery shattered everything we thought we knew about the origins of civilization. It didn't belong to the era of empires, nor to the age of early farming. It came from a time when humans were still nomads, hunters, and gatherers, supposedly too primitive to create anything monumental. And yet they built something beyond belief. Not ruins, but a declaration carved in stone, a message from our distant ancestors that even in the dawn of humanity, there was already a yearning for the sacred, for beauty, for order, and for thought. At the heart of all the mysteries surrounding Göbekli Tepe stand the massive T-shaped stone pillars rising solemnly from the desolate landscape like timeless markers. Some of these pillars reach over 6 meters tall and weigh nearly 20 tons, arranged in symmetrical circular enclosures that hint at a precisely planned architectural vision, not random placements. Yet what has truly stunned archaeologists is not just the size of these stones, but the artistic mastery carved across their surfaces. These pillars are not rough or primitive, as one might expect from ancient structures. They are meticulously sculpted with vivid and lifelike detail, depicting animals such as foxes, snakes, vultures, and lions, all shown in dynamic poses full of motion and energy. Many of the carvings are even done in high relief, meaning the images project boldly from the stone, a technique that demands immense skill and precise control. What makes this level of craftsmanship even more astonishing is the historical context. The entire site was constructed around 9600 BCE, a time when humans had not yet developed agriculture, had no knowledge of metal tools, and had no written language. These were hunter-gatherer tribes, living off the land, moving with the seasons without permanent settlements. And yet they left behind a structure that required abstract thinking, collective organization, and a sophisticated artistic spirit. This alone overturns long-held assumptions about primitive humans. Göbekli Tepe proves that even before villages or farms, our ancestors already had belief systems, symbolic expression, and the urge to manifest their inner world through form and image. These pillars are not just physical constructs, they are stone declarations from a spiritual world older than any organized religion we know today. The construction of Göbekli Tepe required massive coordination and labor. Without pack animals or wheels, they quarried, transported, and erected multi-ton stones, a feat requiring geometry balance engineering and, above all, a shared purpose. The level of social organization, implied here challenges the traditional view that civilization followed farming. Göbekli Tepe suggests the reverse may be true. Spiritual or ritual needs may have led to permanent settlements and then to agriculture. Many of the carvings show high-relief images of animals in motion, a leaping fox, a circling snake, a vulture with spread wings. Others depict abstract symbols and possibly anthropomorphic figures, some with arms folded across their chests, hinting at ritual or mythic meanings. These pillars were not just stones. They may have represented gods, ancestors, or spiritual guardians. In essence, Göbekli Tepe is a temple without walls, a sanctuary under the open sky. Among all the strange things about Göbekli Tepe, perhaps the most bewildering and haunting is the fact that the entire structure was deliberately buried around 8000 BCE, just a few centuries after it was built. This was not the result of natural decay or a catastrophic event. The massive stone circles were carefully filled in with earth rubble and small debris, as if a group of people had made a conscious decision to hide this monument from the outside world. And the question is, why? Why would a community spend centuries building a grand monument with dozens of intricately carved stone pillars, only to deliberately bury it all? Were they trying to protect something sacred, or was the burial part of a major religious ritual marking the closure of a spiritual cycle or the end of a cultural era? Some theories suggest that this act of burial might symbolize a shift in belief systems as the community began adopting new ideologies or transitioning into a different social structure. It's also possible that they feared something, a belief, a spiritual force tied to the site so powerful that they felt the need to seal it away forever. This very act of sealing is what allowed Göbekli Tepe to be preserved almost perfectly for 10,000 years, making it not just a ruin, but a buried secret waiting until our time to re-emerge. It was not a structure destroyed, but rather a message intentionally hidden, and to this day, no one truly knows what it means. What makes Göbekli Tepe even more extraordinary is this: what we see today is only a very small part of the entire site. According to official archaeological reports, only about 10% of the total area has been excavated. The rest, buried deep beneath the earth, remains untouched. Thanks to ground-penetrating radar, researchers have identified many more stone circles deliberately spaced apart, suggesting that the scale of the site may be far greater than previously imagined. This opens up the possibility that the most important secrets are still buried, from ancient myths and early belief systems to breathtaking architectural wonders no one has ever seen. For decades, the accepted view was farming led to settlements, which led to religion and civilization. But Göbekli Tepe challenges that sequence. It suggests religion came first, and gathering for ritual may have sparked agriculture. In other words, belief may have built civilization. It's a dramatic inversion of everything we thought we knew about our own story. Göbekli Tepe shows that our ancestors were not just survivors. They were visionaries, artists, engineers, and spiritual beings. They carved meaning into stone, dreamed across generations, and built monuments that defied time. And then, they buried them. The hill still holds its breath. The stones still stand. And the story, our story, is still being uncovered. What do you think the builders of Göbekli Tepe were trying to tell us? Why bury something so grand? Share your thoughts in the comments, because this ancient mystery is far from solved. Deep in the untamed jungles of southern Costa Rica, where mist drapes over ancient treetops and time seems to stand still, lie hundreds of perfectly round stone spheres, strange, immaculate, and utterly unexplained. They are not modern art, nor do they belong to any well-known civilization. These massive orbs, known by the mysterious name Las Bolas, emerge silently yet defiantly, as if carved to bewilder those who would come after. Who created them? How could a culture without metal tools shape such hard stone? And above all, why for nearly a century, modern science has struggled to unlock the secrets hidden within these unfathomable stones. One of the most striking features that make the stone spheres of Costa Rica stand out and captivate scientists is their almost impossibly perfect spherical shape. These orbs vary greatly in size, from ones as small as a tennis ball to massive stones over 2.5 meters in diameter, yet many of them were carved with deviations of only a few millimeters. This raises a profound question. How could an ancient culture, without access to metal tools, the wheel, or any modern measuring devices, achieve such an extraordinary level of precision? Even more puzzling is the material itself, granodiorite, a type of extremely hard rock that today requires specialized metal equipment to shape effectively. This suggests that the ancient craftsmen employed techniques that are still not fully understood, possibly including abrasion with other stones, thermal fracturing, using fire and water, or a combination of lost methods passed down through oral tradition. While scholars continue to debate the exact processes used, there is widespread agreement that the craftsmanship and patience involved far exceed what is typically attributed to non-literate societies. Each sphere is a testament to meticulous skill, technical intention, and a deep cultural purpose, though what that purpose was remains one of the enduring mysteries of pre-Columbian archaeology. If there is one thing that has haunted and captivated people about the stone spheres of Costa Rica for decades, it is the utter silence surrounding their origin and purpose. There are no ancient inscriptions, no carvings, no drawings, and no surviving local legends clear enough to help scientists trace their history. These spheres seem to have emerged fully formed from the jungle, perfect and indifferent, quietly waiting for future generations to ask questions. While other ancient civilizations left behind temple statues, or at the very least recognizable clues about the intent behind their monuments with Las Bolas, we are left only with their presence without explanation. Scientific dating methods have established that most of the spheres were likely created between 700 and 1530 AD, coinciding with the peak of the Diquis culture, an indigenous society that once flourished in the lowlands of southern Costa Rica. The Diquis are believed to have had a complex social structure with interconnected communities and ceremonial centers. However, most of their archaeological sites were destroyed by time and modern urbanization. What makes this culture particularly elusive is the fact that it left no writing system, and unlike the Maya or Aztecs, there are no grand pyramids or stone cities. The remnants are modest pottery shards, foundation mounds, and these mysterious stone spheres. For archaeologists, these orbs may be the most significant surviving artifact, offering insight into Diquis beliefs, social structure, and cosmology. But their extreme isolation in the archaeological record is precisely what renders them so enigmatic. As for their purpose, there is no scholarly consensus. Some researchers believe the spheres were symbols of power, possibly placed in front of the homes of elite individuals to signal authority, much like totem poles or monumental statues in other ancient cultures. Others propose that the spheres had a ritual function connected to religious ceremonies, funerary practices, or rites of passage. Another hypothesis suggests they were aligned with astronomical patterns, perhaps used to track solar, lunar, or stellar cycles. More pragmatic theories propose that the spheres could have served as territorial markers, denoting boundaries between different communities. But what all these theories share is a glaring absence of concrete physical evidence or corroborative records. Because no definitive information exists, the spheres have become a mirror for human imagination. Some see them as the remnants of a lost civilization, never documented. Others interpret them as mystical objects aligned with Earth's energy lines, and still others propose that they were left behind by extraterrestrials. While many of these ideas may seem far-fetched, the lack of clear evidence makes them impossible to dismiss outright, and that is precisely what keeps Las Bolas alive in the collective human psyche as a timeless enigma. During research, archaeologists discovered that many of the stone spheres had once been deliberately arranged in straight lines, equilateral triangles, or circles, suggesting they may have held spatial, ceremonial, or astronomical significance. However, due to widespread relocation throughout the 20th century for use in decoration or land clearing, most of the spheres have lost their original placement, making it nearly impossible to decipher their intended alignment. This represents a significant loss for archaeology. Since their discovery in 1939, Costa Rica's mysterious stone spheres have become the subject of countless theories, ranging from mainstream science to supernatural speculation. Some believe they were crafted by extraterrestrials or are remnants of a long-lost Atlantean civilization. Although these ideas lack solid scientific evidence, they continue to capture the public imagination due to the sphere's enigmatic nature and the absence of clear explanations. Meanwhile, most archaeologists agree that the spheres are a remarkable achievement of the indigenous Diquis people, reflecting their impressive technical skill and sophisticated understanding of stone craftsmanship. In recognition of their cultural value and to help preserve the archaeological context, UNESCO designated 4 major sites, Finca, 6, Batambal, El Silencio, and Grijalba II, as World Heritage Sites in 2014, paving the way for further serious study of this enduring mystery. Today, while many of Costa Rica's stone spheres are displayed in parks, museums, or private gardens, their true value does not lie in where they currently rest, but in the original context that has been lost. Once removed from their initial placement, the spheres were severed from their spatial, geographical, and cultural connections. These seemingly inert stones are in fact a language carved in stone, still undeciphered, a silent testament to a civilization we have yet to truly understand. They remain still and enigmatic, a powerful reminder that much of human history remains buried, waiting to be rediscovered through knowledge, respect, and unbounded imagination. With so many unanswered questions about their origin, purpose, and method of creation, the stone spheres of Costa Rica continue to pose one of humanity's greatest archaeological mysteries. What do you think lies behind their existence? Are they purely the achievement of an ancient civilization? Or could there be something far beyond our current understanding? Share your thoughts. We'd love to know how you would decode this enigma.